Shining Force is my favorite game on the Sega Genesis, and I have a lot of fondness for the Shining Force series in general. But Shining Force 3 isn't just my favorite game of the entire Shining series. This is among my favorite strategy RPGs of all time. Right up there with Fire Emblem Awakening and Path of Radiance, alongside Valkyria Chronicles and Into the Breach. Despite the difficulty of tracking this game down and following it through to completion, it is a must-play if you ever get the chance. This game follows the tried-and-true formula that defined the series since its first entry. Anyone who loves Shining Force's blending of strategy and exploration is sure to be right at home. The biggest change one will notice is that this game has fully rendered 3D environments. Not only that, the battles now feature fully modeled characters actually performing their attacks. I'll admit that this game definitely looks like it's from its time. Without a CRT to help smooth out what's on screen, this is going to be a game that will make some unfortunate souls retch in agony. But if I have to be honest, I really like the graphics. There are some games that look so dated that it almost seems to wrap around and look cool again. But maybe that's just me though. My first video games came from this era, so low poly aesthetics and pre-rendered character sprites almost have a timeless quality to me. The 3D isn't just for show, however. You have the ability to rotate the camera a full 360 degrees. Not only can you adjust the viewpoint on the battlefield, even zooming in and out for a better view, but this benefits the town exploration segments of the game much more. Town layouts can be much more complex, requiring players to put extra effort forth in scouring the places they visit for every secret. The best exploration of the series, in my opinion. Not much has changed in terms of mechanics and battle strategy, although there are still some things it brought to the table. One thing this game would introduce that would become a staple of Camelot's future games are weapon unleashes. As characters use a weapon type for enough time, they will unlock powerful attacks that deal more damage, or even apply status ailments. It feels nice to be rewarded for sticking with certain weapon types, instead of just picking the ones that have the highest stats. Experimenting with the different weapons and finding the ones that suit your playstyle the most is certainly an enjoyable aspect of the game. Another enjoyable thing is how this game also raises the stakes for battles. Shining Force has always been known for being a more relaxing SRPG, because it doesn't feature permanent death for fallen allies. While it's still not a big deal when characters die, you do have more of a reason to keep them alive this time. As characters fight together, they will build friendship and boost attributes when nearby, almost like the Fire Emblem support system. However, they will also lose those bonuses if they die. It's a small reason to play carefully, but it's enough. And the game also encourages the player to be a little more daring with their movements. The thing that sets Shining Force 3 above the rest of the series is the map design. Now you'll have plenty of maps that are just a standard battle between two armies, but thrown in from time to time are inventive map gimmicks and concepts. For example, controlling a group of refugees as you try to avoid them getting killed by enemy forces. Firing cannons onto an enemy ship in order to force it into drawing closer. Hiding behind cover to be protected from a flying weapon. There will even be a few maps that use multiple armies to help drive the story. Now it's fair to say not every unique gimmick is completely thought through, but I applaud Shining Force 3 for trying where most others would be content to rearrange some terrain and call it a day. There's one aspect of the map design I do not care for, however. That would be the optional areas you get to explore. By bringing an old map to certain ruins, you can get inside and gather unique treasures. The problem is that thieves are also after the same loot. I'm fine with this added pressure and concept, but the thieves have a head start to the treasures, and unless you already know what to do, it's nearly impossible to catch up. The coolest thing about them is that sometimes you might find a character you can recruit inside, but the ruins are otherwise best left ignored. And of course, there are characters to find and recruit. The roster of available characters you have is actually less than the previous games in the series. However, this does result in a few more benefits as well. One thing I love about Shining Force 3 is that it actually utilizes its side characters to be involved with the events of the story. They even comment on all the events of the world as the narrative progresses. It doesn't feel like the additional members of the Force exist only in a void that spits them out for battles. Here's a question you can answer in the comments. Who's your favorite Shining Force character? My answer is pretty basic, but you can't mess with the classics. Hands down, it would be Masquerade. Since magical strength now scales to the level of the caster, mages have received a huge buff, so this fire magician will set the battlefield ablaze. She'll be with the Synbios army right from the start, and by the end of Scenario 1, was my most valuable member of the Force. Even in Scenario 3, she was still a top 5 contender within the entire Shining Force. And her personality is also really charming. She's playful and optimistic, but has a bit of a mischievous side as well. I also like the ponytail. Her design is very cute. In fact, now that I think about it, she's basically a proto-Jenna from Golden Sun, so maybe her being my favorite character isn't a coincidence. In fact, Shining Force 3 feels in many ways like an older brother to Golden Sun. The defining feature of Shining Force 3 is that it's a multi-scenario story. Each scenario was actually a separately released game that followed the same storyline from the perspective of a different protagonist. Yeah, that's right, nearly 2 decades before Fire Emblem Fates, Shining Force 3 did the same thing, and it did so almost perfectly. After finishing one of the game's scenarios, you can transfer your data into the next story, reflecting certain decisions you made and party members keeping their levels and stats. For example, I saved 3 of the 5 refugees on this map in Scenario 1, and when I went to play Scenario 2, I saw the same 3 refugees in the corresponding cutscene during that game. But I would actually recommend following a guide if you plan on playing this game. The Shining Force games have always had optional characters that are completely missable, but characters in Shining Force 3 aren't just missable, they're like super duper mega missable. Something you do or don't do from the previous scenario will determine if you can recruit a character in the next one. Now, this has never been a problem for Shining Force in the past, because the optional characters are never necessary to finish the game. And in 98% of cases, they aren't necessary here either. But the final battles of this game can actually be a tad punishing if you aren't prepared for them. You have to divide your armies, but it's not an even split. You have your core 12 members as Team A, and whoever's left as Team B. It's certainly not ever to a point where the game softlocks you, but it is enough of a problem that the final chapters are a slightly worse experience than the rest of the game. Love how they added this one book to tell you it's important to train up everyone and not just a core team. Yeah, thanks game. Maybe next time don't put this book before the second to last battle of the entire scenario. Other than that, the multiple scenario concept is really cool and well handled. But that's also the one thing that makes Shining Force 3 so difficult to recommend. Well, I mean, aside from being a Sega Saturn game. What you're looking at is a game that will last you around 30 hours per scenario. And unlike Fire Emblem Fates or even Three Houses, where each story is self-contained and thus can be enjoyed independently, that's not the case for Shining Force 3. Having to buy and play 3 separate games in order that are debatably all necessary to experience is just a huge ask on someone's wallet and time. The first 2 scenarios will end on cliffhangers, a devastating blow to native English speakers for different reasons. Only the first scenario was ever released outside of Japan. Thankfully, the following 2 scenarios have received a fan translation courtesy of Shining Force Central, but neither have been fully completed. Heck, Scenario 3 in particular was extremely difficult to even get working. If you manage to finally get them up and running, they are certainly playable, but despite being playable, there are a few bugs that resulted in a crash. So if you want to play this game, then you're going to have to really want to play it. Now, in the off chance this game does get an official re-release, be it a port or remake, and offers up the definitive Shining Force 3 experience, there is no question on if this game is worth picking up. Heck, even if you have to go out of your way to secure the fan translations and get them working, it is still worth it. I meant every word when I said this is one of the best strategy RPGs of all time. Not only a technical marvel for the Sega Saturn, but easily the most expansive and ambitious game in the series. While there would be other games to carry the Shining Force name, Shining Force 3 was the last one Camelot Software Planning had any direct input on, which I do think is a bit of a shame. It would have been really cool to see what Camelot could have done with the Sega Dreamcast, or even the PlayStation 2. Although perhaps them staying with Sega means we probably would have never got Golden Sun, so I guess I can count my losses on this one. But I digress. Shining Force 3 has received much renown from those who have been lucky enough to play it, and I'm proud to say that the praise it receives, however minimal, is absolutely deserved. If you're a fan of quality strategy RPGs, Shining Force 3 is a must-play gem.